In my last video, I discussed the Mario creepypasta, which was technically not an actual creepypasta, but rather a true story about a real ROM hack that was submitted to the internet along with other mysterious files. Its success led to the subsequent rise of other people making their own disturbing Super Mario World hacks. One of the most popular examples was simply titled The. In January 2016, during one of SMW Central's biannual C3 events, in which users are encouraged to show off projects they've been cooking up, the user Underway submitted a thread. He filled the thread with cryptic phrases and simplistic screenshots with even more cryptic file names before submitting his hack. It was titled with the word "the," notably preceded by an apostrophe, and was credited to himself and two other site users, Torchkiss and Medic. Alongside the hack, its soundtrack, composed by Torchkiss, was also released. It didn't take long for people to realize that we had another creepy hack on our hands, so many users eagerly jumped in and began the experience, sharing discoveries and theories in threads all over the site. Today, I'd like to take a closer look at the hack myself, so let's dive in. The hack opens with Mario's echoing jump sound effect, followed by an intro message that simply says, "Again?" with scratchy background audio. If you manage to scroll the screen to the right using the right trigger button, just before the text box appears, you can find a faceless image of Princess Peach. If you're playing on an emulator, you might also notice that the hack's internal ROM name has been changed to Coronation Day, which has come to be seen as an alternate title for the hack. After taking a look at the dark and depressing overworld and listening to the apocalyptic-sounding ambience, you can enter the hack's first, and really only level. A quiet, misty forest. The player is unable to spin jump, crouch, or even run. Only walk and jump. As we make our slow march through these woods, the atmosphere gradually changes over time. The sky darkens, rain begins falling, and the music starts to become more intense. Throughout this area, 3 messages appear. Their contents seem to be randomized, but one consistent thing is that they become stranger and stranger as you progress. The first message you encounter has a chance of saying any of the following. "Have you heard the good news? Leave this to me." "I'll be fine. Everything is fine. Where did all of them go? Please leave. I won't mind." Most of these messages appear to be written from the perspective of someone who's about to enter a dangerous place, asking a second person to leave them alone and to have faith that they can handle it. Is this Mario speaking? The atmosphere darkens even more as drops of blood and even bony corpses start falling from the trees, producing red messes and fly clouds all over the ground. The second message you encounter is usually more threatening than the first one, and the possible messages that may show up start referencing someone only referred to as they, as well as someone referred to as he. They made it all from scratch. They told me all about you. Well, honey, he pulled the plug. And you really are a shadow of what you were back then. Well, every good thing has to end. After this, the rain gets louder, and thunder starts pounding in the distance. As we progress even further, it becomes clear that the player is being watched. Shadows appear behind bushes and canopies, snatching away the few enemies who show themselves. And the further you travel, the clearer it becomes that the creature following you appears to be Princess Peach? The third and final message is likely the most demented one you will encounter, often containing scratched-out text. I asked him about it, but he didn't hear me. Is that him behind the... Oh, that look is precious. You'll make it big for sure. He came here way before you. This is his home. The place they... I would check if he lost them, but his hair covers everything. Please stop. I can't breathe. Bring me back up. And it will be tough, but you will get your second chance. After this final message, the thunder starts booming more loudly than ever, as the level is suddenly consumed by darkness. This is the point of no return. Even if you try to move left, you're trapped. There's no way to go but forward. I believe I am the god of this forest. Are you looking for me? I am the one that... As the player emerges in a heavily distorted pink area, a loud, dirty-sounding song starts blasting as a corrupted Peach starts chasing after the player. Until you get used to this part, it's actually somewhat difficult to avoid being touched by her, especially since there are small heads floating around the area as well. If you spend too much time here, a message might appear. Welcome to my forest. Stay away from... Get in the bag. Don't you dare touch my prey. If you survive to the end of the area, you can jump down a pit that takes you to an extremely glitchy room, cluttered with text, and broken graphics that once again resemble Princess Peach. As you walk through this room, two messages appear. Just like in the first area, their contents are randomized. The first one has a tendency to be rather gory. My throat is all closed up. Won't you please cut it open for me? Thank you. Is that really me? My lungs hurt. Please take them out. The second one can say the following. You bow to me, crook. I am the true king. What color is your favorite? Soon, the player is teleported to what looks like a sepia-tone version of the first area, with leaves drifting down from the sky. And now we're playing as Princess Peach. As you progress, the music becomes a distorted version of the first few notes from the original game's theme song. There are also enemies here, though they can't hurt you. You can kill them, however. Continuing with the hack's MO, more randomized messages appear. The first one you encounter may say, I remember the sound of the flies. They made me who I am. Please help me. I can't stop cutting. You smell so red. What did you do? The second message can say, Here I lay. Bring me your lungs. Crown her. The crop this year was horrendous. Except for you. The third message you encounter is not randomized, but is actually based on how you handled the enemies earlier in the stage. If you opted to ignore them, or only kill some of them, then you get, I see you are trying a little bit, but they want all of them. But if you chose to squish every single one of them... Oh yes, now's the time. Go back and show them who you really are. If you continue forward from here, a series of scripted, non-randomized messages appear, as the game starts taking over in the form of a cutscene. This is what happens. Interesting. You really had no idea, did you? You built it. And after that, you... tried. Peach is confronted by what looks to be a floating, shadowy version of herself, and forced to fall into a pit. And after this, we regain control of Mario in a slightly more red version of the first stage. We then get to listen in on what sounds like a conversation between two parties. Hey honey, come over here for a minute. What do you think? Isn't that color a little harsh now? No. He loves red. We then find ourselves staring at a pool of red liquid. The player is now trapped, as we can no longer jump or even walk. The only thing we can still do is scroll the screen, and if you scroll to the right, we can see, just beyond the wall, a demented image of Peach, with the phrase, "I watch," scratched into the dirt below. The player can't do anything other than reset the game. This is just one of the game's multiple endings. If you chose to kill every single enemy in the Peach level, then followed the message's instructions to go back, Peach falls through one of the bridges, and the level ends. Re-entering the level causes us to go back to Mario in a brand new area. Mario falls down a long distance before landing on a floating platform. As what sounds like underwater ambient noise plays, the game becomes a short collectathon segment in which a voice instructs the player to collect weeds and bits of wood to build a small house. Interestingly, this is the only area in the entire hack in which you play as Mario in his large, super form, rather than his smaller form. If you do what the voice says, it seems increasingly happy about it, to an almost inappropriate degree. Before you start, you have to pull up the weeds. Oh yes, that's it. Now gather the wood for the walls. Oh yes, just a little more for the roof. Oh god, yes. Amazing work. They love it. After this last message, however, the game crashes, and nothing more can be done. More endings can be found if you get caught by Peach in the Loud Room. The player is initially sent back to the overworld, but when you re-enter the level, the forest has become frozen. There's a slight blue color, the ground is slippery, the water's animation is now iced in place, and a very light snow is falling. If you scroll the screen to the left at the beginning of this area, you can see a green Princess Peach, standing still at the bottom of a column of water. Moving through the area, we find that the level is filled with countless other Marios that appear just at the edge of the screen, before vanishing as you approach them. There's also one shadowy Mario that doesn't disappear, with the word "I'm" written above it. If you carefully position yourself directly in front of it, then a text block appears. The heart. Is this meant to complete the sentence? I'm the heart? At the end of the room, a blood-soaked door leads us back into the house we built in the previous ending, but now with a crushed Mario corpse, positioned right where we had fallen at the end of that route. Trying to exit the house again leads us to a dark room with more underwater ambience. Oh God, who is this guy? I tried yelling at him so he would go away, but my voice was gone. When we come upon what looks like Mario's ghost, a final message appears. Now he's just staring at me through the window above, and the game resets. The fourth and final main ending is the most elaborate, and the most difficult to find. If we get caught by Peach, and take a closer look at the frozen forest level, you may notice that there's one spot in particular where the light suddenly turns off while you're walking on a small bridge. There are many other areas in the game where the light gradually gets dimmer, but this is the only spot where it happens so abruptly. There's another clue hidden elsewhere that seems to be relevant. Recall the scratchy audio that you hear again and again whenever you restart the game. If you take the sound file that was released with the game's soundtrack and view it as a spectrogram in any audio software, then we find a hidden message. Start anew where the light vanishes. If you press the start button on the controller while standing on this small bridge, the bridge breaks and you fall through. The hack then restarts. Normally, this will just cause everything to start over, but if you break the bridge after standing in front of the shadow and viewing the heart, then restarting the game brings us somewhere completely different. The forest is on fire. It's so dark that the only things you can see are the surrounding embers and Mario's red, glowing eyes. The music consists of muffled, regal-sounding horns, as though something is being celebrated in the distance. I've heard people compare this room to the feeling of being trapped in hell, stuck in eternal misery, forced to listen to the triumphant, happy sounds of heaven, the place you were denied access to. 2 messages will appear in this room. One of them always says, "The answer lies in the collection of worlds. It simply goes from front to back." The second one is randomized and is picked from 4 possible options. 2 of them seem to be describing some kind of monster. "The dragon can't think. It can only act." And its shadow towered in the light, horns larger than its head, sounds that weren't from this time. What a staggering sight. The other 2 possible messages seem to be talking about a cat. "The cat was only mad when we first met, and after that, he forgot we had met at all. Poor cat." And "The cat tried to save me, for it kept taking the fish away. The fish that poisoned me." No matter how many times you reset the game, you seem to be stuck here forever. Unless, however, you're extremely clever. The message that's always constant tells you that the answer lies on the collection of worlds. If you open up the hack in Lunar Magic, the software used for modifying Super Mario World ROM files, you can check the Overworld editor, the collection of worlds. At first glance, nothing seems to be new, other than another Princess Peach hovering above the map. But if you go into the palette settings and disable custom palettes, this is what appears. A second Peach has been hidden there the whole time, hidden behind a blank palette, and lots of text below shows up. To the right of the map is the word witness repeated over and over, along with the phrase, "Do not trust voices." Below the map is the phrase, "He did not know." This phrase overlaps with the map itself, so you can actually view this one in-game if you use an emulator's settings to disable Layer 3 graphics. Finally, we can see the question, "Don't you know hacking is a sin?" And right below that, a sequence of numbers written out in a square pattern. The message from the game said, "It simply goes from front to back." So let's rearrange the letters. If you write out the first letter from each box, moving left to right, top to bottom, then you start seeing the phrase, "Open door." Continuing on with this pattern, we find a long string of numbers. If you convert the string of numbers from decimal into hexadecimal, and then from hexadecimal into text by breaking the string up into 2-character bytes, then the following words are found. Yield, all, upper, xanthic, bodies, left, behind, rotten, anthropy. The phrase is clearly nonsensical on its own, but those of you who are especially astute may notice that every word begins with a letter that represents a button on the Super Nintendo controller. If you enter the Burning Forest and press the following buttons, Y, A, up, X, B, left, B, right, A, then the level teleports you to what many people believe is the hack's true ending. July 31st, 1992. I am truly impressed by their detective skills. The evidence bestows me. This must be what it feels like to be king. And I did not need his help. Where you is he. I am the king, for he is not you. Feast upon the flowering organs. For he is king. Nothing more can be done here, and even resetting the game will still always take you back to the Burning Forest. Unless you delete your save file, there's no escape. Those are the hack's main endings, but there are other secrets as well. A fifth ending can be found by simply not progressing in the first area. Is that really it? You're even more useless than the last one. Thanks for nothing. He is calling for me again. I have to go. And then the game freezes. There are other secrets in the ROM that aren't accessible in-game, but can still be viewed by hacking, and making edits to the game with lunar magic. Just below some of the house-building levels, the word rot can be found. There's also a level that can't be accessed using any other method. If you use lunar magic to change the level on the overworld to level 15, then you can enter an unused pink level, with weird, glitchy graphics everywhere, and enemies that resemble internal organs. That you need. Take it. Pillage my carcass. Oh my god. Yes! Rip it out, I beg you! Oh, it's coming out! And, as the strangest, most gory corruption of Peach appears on the screen... Oh my god, yes, it's... Wait. Did it fall? and then the game crashes. You can make it past her without the game crashing by scrolling the screen to the left and walking forward. This allows you to fall into the pit before the crash is triggered, but it doesn't lead to anything other than a long fall similar to the ones in the house building ending, where you seem to fall onto another Mario before the game crashes once again. Fans of the hack consider these to be the hack's 6th and 7th endings, but I'm doubtful of whether or not they were intentional. The falling ending in particular seems to be more of a bug than anything else, at least to me. Users who discovered this level have pointed it out and asked the hack's creators about it, but they've said that the Pink Forest is unfinished, and not something that people were supposed to find. I'm not sure if this means that an update or sequel was planned, because there never was any major update, as far as I can tell. Underway did say in another post that the creepier graphics he made went unused, so maybe the creators simply changed their minds about including the pink level, and we just found the residue. You can also find some other messages that don't seem to be accessible. One of them says GJDTZFU. I'm not sure what this means. It doesn't seem to be an anagram for anything, and applying ROT13 or any other ROT algorithm doesn't turn it into anything apparently meaningful either. The fact that it doesn't seem to appear in the game, and is so nonsensical, leads me to suspect that it's just gibberish that wasn't meant to mean anything. Maybe it's a leftover of something that was used during development to test out the new fonts? There's also, "Stop playing coy. Just give them a little drama for God's sake." This one really feels like it should be in the game, but I can't find it anywhere. Based on the contents of the message, and where it's located in the message list, my personal guess is that it might have something to do with the section where you can choose to kill enemies as Peach. As described earlier, after you pass the enemies, a message appears either to congratulate you for killing them all, or to encourage you to kill more. I think it's strange that even if you don't kill any of them at all, the message still starts with, "I see you are trying a little bit." Based on the way the coy message is phrased, I wonder if it was originally intended to show up if you didn't kill anything, but coding problems prevented it from working out that way. On a more minor note, I also noticed 2 messages that say, "tried." I don't know if either is necessarily unused, since a message that says "tried" does show up during the red ending, but since it appears in 2 different entries on the list, I don't want to completely ignore the possibility that it was meant to appear somewhere else, too. As mentioned a few times earlier, the hack itself was released alongside the soundtrack, downloadable in the Super Nintendo's SPC 700 audio format. The zip file's name appears to be an anagram. What exactly it's supposed to say is debatable. The old skin seems the most obvious and likely translation, considering the hack's fixation on bodily organs, though some have arranged the letters of the final word to say sink, inks, or kins. Technically, old could have an alternate translation as well, as it can be arranged to say dole, a measurement of pain, but maybe I'm just reading too much into things. Opening the music in an SPC player reveals that every track has unique tags, and that most of them have the same structure to them. The word "the", with the apostrophe, surrounded by a jumble of letters that seem to be an anagram for another word. !1.SPC is the music that plays during the "again" text, with the spectrogram image mentioned earlier. Its title field is set to name, and the game field is set to the world. 0.SPC is the overworld music, and is called collection, the crawl. 1.SPC is the music from the first area, and is called number 2, the... and then the anagram could realistically say caller, seller, or even recall. Since it's the first area's music, maybe caller makes the most sense, as though something is calling Mario to the forest? 2.SPC is from the frozen forest, and is called number 4, the death, or alternatively, the hated. 3.SPC is from the glitchy area, and is called number 2, the dark. 4.spc is from the level where you play as Peach, and is called Number 1, The Beginning. 5.spc is from the red ending, and is called Number 3, The Memory. The next 3 tracks in the soundtrack have file names in decimal code. The one with a file name translating to Hell is the music in the burning forest, and is called Number 5, The Rage. I guess the word here could also be gear, ager, or a reg, but none of those seem likely to be the intent. The one titled Null is from both the house ending and the staring ending, and is called Number 3, The Mistake. The one titled ''End is the music that plays during the King ending, and is called Number 6, The, with no other words in sight. The fact that the translated file name begins with an apostrophe has led to theories that The End is the full title of the hack. The SBC's runtime is 666 seconds. And finally, 111.SBC is the loud music that plays during the chase scene, and is titled Number 2, The Ladder, or alternatively, The Rattle, or The Larded. Another interesting detail about the soundtrack is that every SPC has been edited so that the creation date is written as July 31st, 1992, the same date mentioned in the King ending. I've seen some people also point out the ID 666 text format as being suspiciously satanic, but that's actually not weird at all. It always says this, since ID 666 happens to be the name of the tag system used by all SPCs. That's all I know about the hack, so if there are any other secrets I've missed, please let me know in the comments below. What I've explained in this video is all the information I was able to find after both investigating much of the hack myself and going through other people's videos and forum posts discussing it. So, now that we've established all of the known clues, the final step is figuring out what it all means. From the week the hack was released, the detail that seemed to attract the most interest and speculation was the date that appears in the King ending, and in the SPC data, July 31st, 1992. Searching for any real-world events that took place on that day don't appear to yield anything interesting. The only events listed under that date on Wikipedia are Georgia joining the United Nations and 2 plane crashes. The date also marked the death of an English Air Force pilot and the births of several athletes. Maybe I'm just missing something, but I don't really see how any of those events could connect to a demented Mario game about a haunted forest. Maybe it's something more obscure. It looks like some Hungarian swimmers broke some world records and won some medals in the Olympics on that day. It was also the day before Mario Paint was released in the United States. I have been informed about a tragic suicide that took place on this date, but since it doesn't seem to have any parallels with the hack, other than involving a bridge, which could be tied to the hack's more hidden endings, I'm not convinced that this is relevant either. To be honest, my general feeling is that it might be kind of insensitive to base a hack like this on any real tragedy, unless maybe one of the creators knew the people involved and wanted to honor their memory in some unique way. But until such a thing is confirmed, let's just assume that the date is fictional, and the hack story is entirely self-contained. Fortunately, even ignoring the date, there's still no shortage of theories on what the hack depicts. Although many people disagree on the details, most theories I've seen are based around the basic idea that Mario and Peach somehow disturbed a monster or demon in the forest, which then possessed Peach's body and then began using it to attack Mario. Presumably, him refers to the demon itself, while them could refer to its cult of followers. The general idea is that Mario and Peach visited the forest while on vacation. The ending where Mario builds the house is theorized to take place first, since it's the only ending where he's in his usual big form. He builds the house, probably meant to be used as a cabin, but using the forest's wood to build it somehow allows the demon to escape and roam freely. hence the death of Mario that we see once the house is finished. The ending where we see Mario's ghost after visiting the finished house seems to take place shortly afterwards, in which the demon takes over Peach's body, cutting her off mid-sentence. It's harder to explain, though, what happens next. Playing the hack, we can see other Marios, and Mario corpses even, while actively playing as Mario. This is where the theories tend to really diverge from one another. Some believe that the demon has interdimensional powers and can torture Mario from many different universes, while others believe that this is an abstract breaking of the fourth wall, referencing Mario's ability to have multiple lives and replay levels over and over again. Or maybe it's even referencing the fact that many different players can play the same hack. It doesn't matter if the demon has already killed him, Mario can be killed an infinite number of times, and so all of the endings are equally valid. This is all evidenced by the constantly repeating "again" text, which appears even the very first time you load the game. It's as if the entity is getting bored of the player, or players in general. Even more evidence of this is in the useless ending, where the entity refers to the player as this one, as though other Marios or other players are being recognized as different people entirely. Everything culminates in the ending where you find yourself in the fiery area. A possible interpretation here is that Mario burned down the forest, attempting to defeat the demon, unintentionally releasing the monster into the outside world, where it claims the kingdom as its own. This final ending is the demon's Coronation Day. This whole theory probably sounds a little too obvious and straightforward, but I like it. It seems to have an environmental message behind it. The mess is caused by senselessly cutting down trees, and burning away the rest of the forest only makes it much worse for the rest of the world. A second popular theory is more tragic and less demonic. This one starts out the same way, with Mario and Peach visiting the forest while on vacation. But while Mario was away doing something else, maybe while he was building the house, Peach fell through one of the bridges that Mario built and drowned in the water. Evidence of this can be found in the game's frequent use of visuals and audio that give off the feeling of being underwater, as well as Peach herself being shown underwater. There are even messages saying things like, "I can't breathe," and "bring me back up." What happens after this is more difficult, though. Perhaps Mario became filled with grief, and everything else in the hack is a manifestation of his regret and self-hatred? Or maybe Peach's spirit is now bent on revenge, tormenting him forever, mocking his fall from grace, and how he no longer deserves the king-like fame he once had. Whichever it is, the hack's true ending seems to imply that Mario eventually commits suicide in the same way, walking onto one of his bridges before deliberately letting it collapse, causing him to be plunged into hell forever. The third theory I want to talk about is a little goofier, but is my personal favorite. Several messages, such as the one saying that Mario is a shadow of what he once was, have been the source of jokes that the hack may be a sort of allegory for the downfall of the Mario brand. It's much better nowadays, but at the time this hack was made, public opinion of Nintendo hadn't been doing so well. It was commonplace for YouTubers and video game critics to comment on how unoriginal and mediocre most of their recent games had been, and as this was over a year before the Switch came out, the relative failure of the Wii U defined modern Nintendo for many people. Of course, Nintendo wasn't, and likely never will be, in danger of actually going out of business, because we, the consumers, keep playing them, and even go so far as to immortalize their work in ROM hacks. Many messages in the hack seem to be speaking to the player about this, or at least referring to them in some way. The "you built it" during the blood ending is often interpreted as being about Mario building the house and unleashing the demon, or building the faulty bridge from which Peach fell to her doom, but it can also be taken to mean that the audience is responsible for building Nintendo's power by buying their games. The recurring pronoun they or them could be talking about the players and their constant thirst for new levels, hence why they are satisfied when you kill all the enemies, and why you're rewarded for it. The transition between the burning forest room and the white text screen is also interesting to me. In order to find the white text, you have to basically dissect the game itself in an editor to find the code, where the game directly criticizes you for being a hacker. Furthermore, the first text that appears when you punch in the code mentions being impressed by someone's detective skills. Considering the context, I can't imagine this referring to anyone other than the player themselves, again being referred to as they. But the voice goes on to suggest that it never needed your help to begin with, since Nintendo's mascot, Mario, is king, the unstoppable ruler of the video game industry. Recall that most songs in the soundtrack have numbers in their tags. Since the numbers are out of order, and some of them repeat, it's been suggested that these could indicate an order of events. Here is a list of the songs and their areas, sorted by their title number. I'm not sure whether this tells us anything interesting. If we assume that the king ending truly is the real, final ending, then it being last, and right after the burning forest, makes logical sense. It also makes some kind of sense that the song titled The Beginning should be listed first, and this lends credibility to the theory that this all started with Peach drowning from the bridge. The numbers in between make less sense to me though. The conversations and events that take place during the endings show the characters not yet realizing that something paranormal is unfolding, so it feels strange to me that they should take place after everything has already descended into chaos, as shown in the first area. Maybe they're flashbacks of some sort? I don't know what to make of this, other than that maybe the numbering might just be somewhat arbitrary. So I'll leave it to you guys to comment your own thoughts on this. Regardless of what you believe about the hack story, one thing that can't be denied is that this hack does a terrific job of perfecting what I've discussed in previous videos. The horror is forged by the unknown. Because it's never clearly explained what's going on, and even because of how many of the clues appear to contradict each other, deciphering the story isn't easy, and when it's up to our minds to fill in those blanks, the hack becomes that much creepier. The hack's creators have made it pretty clear that they won't reveal anything themselves about the hack or its story, which is probably for the best, and since I doubt they'll ever change their minds, it looks like the story of the will forever remain up for debate. So that means it's left up to us. What do you guys think? If you have your own explanation for what's going on, or you found secrets within the hack that I missed, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts. I find this sort of thing really fascinating, and I'd love to see what others think. I'll include a link below to where you can download the hack and explore it yourself. And that's it for this video. I was really happy about the previous video's reception, as I've received tons of requests for videos on more topics that I'm super excited to investigate. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you all have a lovely night.